By the way, we expect any moment. AOC is speaking tonight. This is Joe Biden's, I guess, bon voyage, farewell. He got the boot, got kicked out of the party. He'll be joining us. He'll be speaking up on the stage as well. We expect Hillary Clinton to make an appearance. Anyway, joining us now. Before AOC is expected to take the stage. We'll check in with that. Is former 2024 GOP presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy. You've been very focused in almost every interview that we have that Republicans need to focus on issues. I agree with you. And you have 3 issues that you focus on. I would say there are 5 issues in total that Republicans need to focus on. It would be the border, law and order. It would be energy. It would be the economy and America's role in the world. Okay, you have your 3. But there's one other thing. America still does not know everything that she's said. I've been asking every guest tonight that question. And the poll that John McLaughlin put out shocked me. People from 70 to 84% don't know where she has stood and stands on these issues. Well, isn't that as important as getting out your views? Exposing that?
Absolutely. And let me be a little helpful on that, Sean. She has sought to abolish private health insurance. If you have private health insurance, she has said she wants to end it for a single-payer health care system. She has favored the Green New Deal, said she wanted to end the filibuster in the Senate to ram that through. A ban on fracking, she stood for that. A ban on offshore drilling, she's stood for that. So you name it, Sean. This is a left-wing policy playbook that she ran on for U.S. president in the year 2020. And I think we need to be going harder after Kamala Harris's policy record. That's how I think we're going to win this election, not just by a little bit. I heard Newt Gingrich talking about that Michael Dukakis analogy. I think this could be that on steroids if we hit her hard for her policy record. And the reality is she's now trying to flip-flop. Well, the reality is people won't fall for it because her actions speak louder than her words. She didn't just say she favored single-payer health care. She co-sponsored the bill with Bernie Sanders. She didn't just say she favored the Green New Deal. She made motions to end the filibuster to ram that through. That's the real Kamala Harris Americans need to see. And once they do, they're not going to go for her.
One of the things that might be a little different than when Dukakis ran is this. They didn't have early voting this early. And it wasn't this widespread in the country. I don't like it. How is it that we have, early voting beginning in 30 days? So many things can happen between the time people may vote and actual election day that could significantly impact people's decisions. I mean, look at when Hunter Biden's laptop came out that was very real, that the media wouldn't cover and big tech wouldn't cover. But that's called an October surprise that could alter an election's outcome. That's one of the reasons I don't understand they move these elections earlier and earlier.
So let me be crystal clear. Donald Trump has made clear that we want single-day voting on Election Day as a national holiday with paper ballots and government-issued ID to match the voter file. That's a reasonable policy, Sean, that most Americans agree on, black or white, and even left or right. But in order to get there, we have to win this election. So are we playing on a level playing field there? No, we're not. But we have to play within the rules we have and win decisively in order to change those rules to the system that we actually need. So that requires Republicans at home to understand that this is not the year for complacency. Get yourself out, get your neighbors out, make sure people understand what the actual policy proposals are for the other side. And a lot of Americans who are struggling, Sean, what do Americans at home know? They know that, prices have gone up, but wages have remained flat. That's something that hits every American economically, regardless of the Bidenomics myths they're trying to sell. You want change in the country, November's your chance. And we can't just win by a little bit. A landslide minus some shenanigans is still going to be a victory. That's what we need to aim for. That's what we need to achieve. But if we do, change is only 90 days away.
How does she get away with no interviews, no gaggles, no press conferences, and her campaign just issuing statements contradicting every position she's ever taken?
Look, they know the strategy, Sean. The more she speaks, including about policy, the more she crumbles. That economic speech she gave was a major disaster when she had to make an actual decision about her vice president, passing over Josh Shapiro for Tim Walz, I believe also a disaster. So they know their strategy. Let the American people hear as little as possible from Kamala Harris from now until the election. But we can't sit here and complain about that. It's up to us to, A, call that out, call the media out for it at every step, but also offer our own vision for where we're headed. I think the biggest risk that Kamala Harris presents is not that the American people fall in love with her or her policies. The biggest risk for our side is that she becomes such a distraction that we forget to remind the American people who we are and what we stand for. Seal the border, end rampant crime, grow the economy, and stay out of World War III. That's what the Republican Party is going to deliver, both through Donald Trump in the White House and majorities in the Senate and the House. If that's what Americans want, and I believe they do, we will win this election decisively.
You know, one of the things that kind of defines you, whether people agree with you or disagree with you, you've been extraordinarily successful in your life in the business world. I don't claim to be a campaign advisor in any way. However, if you are going to run a campaign for a business that you were the CEO of, and you were going to take charge of what ads, what messaging would be most effective, I'll tell you what my idea is, and you tell me if I'm right, or you tell me if you have a better idea. I would be running ads of Kamala in her own words on fracking, on drilling, on immigration, on law and order, on foreign policy. Those would be the ads, and Tim Walz, her running mate, as well. Are there better ads in your mind that you would run?
I think that is spot on for half the story, Sean. Half the story is we have to show the American people what views she and Walz have actually favored and advanced. But the other half, and we can't forget this, is just like in business, you can't just advertise against the other product. You have to tell the American people what is the product you're selling yourself. So you know what we stand for? We stand for national pride. We stand for meritocracy. We stand for free speech and open debate, even those who disagree with us. We stand for the rule of law. I can speak to this as a kid of immigrants. That means that you only come into this country legally through the front door, and that we seal our southern border. So combine those two things, Sean. Both lay out Kamala in her own words, including in her presidential campaign, what she stood for: single-payer health care, all the way to taxes on unrealized capital gains. That's a formula for Great Depression. Yes, remind the American voters of that, but don't forget to also tell them this is who we are, not just as Republicans, but as Americans. This is not just what we're running from, but also what we are running to. And I think we can't forget that part in our party.
All right, so look at the lineup tonight. You have Jill and Joe Biden. We expect AOC any moment now is going to come out and give her speech. It is fascinating because, and you mentioned this, is that whether it was the Medicare for All bill that would have eliminated private health insurance, Kamala co-sponsored that with Bernie Sanders, or the Green New Deal in the U.S. Senate. She co-sponsored that with Bernie Sanders in the U.S. Senate. $93 trillion. If that's not communism, socialism, statism, I don't know what is. The fact that she is speaking here tonight, what does that say about the power of the squad? But the squad also has another problem, and that is they have members that I would argue very strongly have said virulently hateful and anti-Semitic things.
Yeah, look, the reality is you have those protests ongoing outside of the DNC. The reality is this could cut really well or really poorly for them. On one hand, I think that they're going to try to distance themselves from that far left wing to be able to say that, hey, we really are moderates, selling the American people what I believe is a false myth that Kamala Harris is some kind of centrist candidate. But the best evidence they can't get away with that is that AOC and the likes of her are actually part of their own speaker lineup, not just on the outside of the building at the protests, but also inside the building itself. And the thing about Kamala Harris to understand, Sean, is that she's not just ideological, it's that she bends the knee to that far left wing. Her first presidential style decision was who was she going to make her vice president? She passed over Shapiro, she went with Walz, and I think that says a lot about how she's going to govern. So whether or not you think she has an ideology, and for all I know she may not, she's a cog in a wheel, it shows who actually is pulling her strings, and it is that far-left progressive wing of the Democratic Party. That's what ought to be most concerning.
Well, people got to remember, in the Senate, she was more liberal, more left than Bernie Sanders, and that says an awful lot. I know they're trying to gloss that whole thing over. Anyway, Vivek Ramaswamy, appreciate you being with us. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.